gold available from as low as 5 cents on people's mobile phone from anywhere at any time. So that particular element provides one key advantage is accessibility and availability, right? So that's the one issue today when it comes to gold, right? So, and we all know that it's an asset of hedging when the economy goes bad. So what about those who can't afford gold or who can go to a market or so that's how we digitize gold. Now, the first thing is, of course, accessibility. The second thing is also availability for the market and for the lower class of the population, but also for institutional investors. Why? Because if you look at the market today, the total market cap of gold is around $10 trillion, right? If you count ETFs and so on. And the people trading in that industry are counted in the numbers of a few millions, right? Where in a planet where you have 7 billion people, almost 8 billion. So how do you increase the outreach for those who want to participate in that industry? And technology today allows that. So in my case, for instance, coming from Africa, I was dealing with a particular dilemma, right? So we do have our local currencies, whether it's the Naira, the Ghana cedi, CFA franc, or South African rands that depreciate every year, right? And that are currencies that are not accepted beyond our borders, which is a significant problem. But at the same time, we do export gold, and it gains value. So the whole point was, how do you create some form of balance? Then the best thing is to tokenize and digitize gold, which means that you have it, and it also gives you access to the global economy. Why? Because yes, people may not want some local currencies, but they'll be interested in being paid in digital gold, because gold is that very unique asset that has always had value, regardless of civilization and geographies across human history. So today, you can then have, if you don't have a credit card, because you have 2 billion adults who are underbanked or unbanked. You don't have a credit card, you can buy digital gold from your phone, and you can potentially go on Amazon, Alibaba, and make purchase. But also, more importantly, get access to online education, right? Because those are things that a big chunk of the population does not have access to. The other very important element when it comes to the digitization of gold is access to the global economy, but also wealth creation. Gold over the past 20 years has gained 500%. Over the past 40 years since Nixon, it has gained 5,000%. So it's a very powerful tool for wealth creation. Now think of this. If only a portion of the global population is trading, what's going to happen when everybody will be trading gold, right? So you're going to have, of course, industries and a level playing field for wealth creation. And you also see that more and more, countries or even central banks or even IMF included are thinking of going back to the gold standards as a transition. Now, should that happen, of course, gold will play a major role, but should everybody have access to it, then the global economy will probably be more performing. The other point is the whole regulation. So the reason why we've chosen the UAE as a major hub is because there is a solid ecosystem, right? So there are refineries, you can have vaults, the registration process of companies is pretty straightforward. And of course, because of its geographic position, it does have many advantages when you want to cover both Africa, Europe, and Asia. So that was a major element in our decision to intensify or increase our presence here and work with the authorities and the key players, right? Once you have the right ecosystem. If you think of the Silicon Valley for technology, the UAE has this potential to become the global hub, Silicon Valley / for gold, where investment assets kills are concentrated in a way to best serve the global economy. So in the case of Ubuntu Tribe, our company, our digital assets are regulated, right? So we're looking at being, regulated by the Security Exchange Commission. I know in the UAE there's been some work that is ongoing in around, the regulation of crypto assets. There was a paper that was recently produced. There's some major efforts being made, and the key challenge will be, how is this going to be competitive versus the other regulatory framework?
This is what brings next question is, how do you create the trust between you and the customers, either B2C or B2B? How do you create this one? This kind of
it's a very good question. So that's where technology comes into play again. So we have a very unique technology that track and trace gold from ground to vault. So the same way as you have your DHL parcel, right? You can have a tracking number. The same system and technology, we have it in place and it works for the gold. And we're sourcing gold from 11 African countries plus one partnership that we have in Canada. And we've been able to set up contracts for $500 million worth of 12-month supplies of gold at a discount. And this is that's the goal when it gets to the vault, right? But once it's in the vault, how do you ensure that it's still there? So there are some audit processes. We work, we're busy selecting either PwC or another or KPMG to do regular audits of the gold, plus relevant technology with cameras, etc., that allows to effectively check that the gold is there. In addition to that, we give opportunity for any customer to redeem their gold, right? And we used, a very efficient logistics system where from a certain amount, you can claim your gold, it gets shipped to where you are, and we work with the same suppliers and logistics companies as Cartier from high jewelry. So trust is fundamental in that industry, and scams are mainstream, unfortunately. So that's why we have a very solid team with some key security experts and put a full integrated supply chain to be able to provide the right level of comfort to our customers. And we do have partnerships with refineries also, where we ensure that from a flow point of view, things are working well. And we're talking to a company based here called Athena, working also on some of the logistics company, working with Emirates Airline also, when it comes to securing logistics and transport of the assets from the continent.
I think trust is okay for companies to build their image on digitalizing trade in gold. Trust and technology is another factor to use the top niche technology that is safe, that is protected for customers and businessmen. But another factor is law and regulation. And this is why this issue has been a challenge or a headache for decision makers in UAE and in other countries. We are pretty much occupied with to create a set of rules that are going internationally standards to protect investors in such a growing market. There is a high return, there is also a high risk, a high potential for fraud, a high potential for money laundering, a high potential for small investors to incur losses, unfairly losses. So I think to create a set of rules to match this growing potential in trade, e-commerce, digital commerce in gold is very much a concern for decision makers in UAE and other GCC countries.
Indeed. Trust and security, especially in gold and doing this kind of business should be maintained and keep changing and developing. Going back to Mr. Juma, I'd like to ask you what are the challenges that you face in the mining, in the gold mining? Can you tell us in Ghana, for example, like you're coming from that, what kind of challenges, what are the things that you need to do to, suppress this and move on with the challenges?
As like we are coming from the ground, like what I see, the first challenge with the bank system, like the bank system, like to do the transaction, to transfer money, for example, from Dubai to Ghana is very difficult, very hard. The bank no help us. As like my friends say, maybe for the money laundry or something. I don't know exactly. This is the first challenge. Because you know, in gold business is international business. Like I cannot send you gold, after that you give me money. And also, like you cannot send me money, after that I send you gold.
Okay.
Like let's say, for example, if I want to open LC from Dubai to Ghana, is not possible. It's very difficult. Yeah.
To open LC.
LC, for example.
Okay. Letter of credit from the bank.
Yeah, letter of credit is not possible. Also, like if somebody want to transfer money to Ghana, is also very hard.
Sure.
It's come like to the first point also. That's why the investor go to the easier way, to the illegal, because he use the black market. When he produce the gold and get the gold, also he sell it in the black market. No use a bank system. And also, like you see, when the money enter to the bank system, the value of the country is go up also. This is the first point of the challenge. The second one, what I see, for example, let's say sometimes for the weather, when the we have like around 3 months, it's come like winter.
Winter.
Okay, it's very hard also for the machine to work, and the quantity of the gold is go down. This is like what I see from the ground challenge. This is what I see now.
Okay. He has a point to add.
Yes, I mean, to the question of security, KYC, AML, that's where technology comes into play again, right? So the biggest issue in gold, not even for investors to look at a digitized gold or buy gold, is trust, right? If I give you the money, are you going to run away with it? If I give you the gold, are you going to give me the gold? Are you going to give me the cash? Now, that's where blockchain again comes into play, right? And because at the end of the day, we create a trustless environment. The same way as an escrow account works, you can use blockchain technology where both assets, which is cash on one side and gold on one side, gets registered and traced and tested. But it doesn't move in the direction of the buyer or the seller until the technology has validated both the accuracy, the comprehensiveness, and the value of the asset. Mm-hmm. So I think in this particular country that embraces technology in a very strong way, that's where going towards the next generation of technologies that could give an edge would be extremely fundamental. And in our case, for instance, we had to deal with the KYC AML. Let's say you're somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Lebanon or I don't know, right, or India. Somebody wants to buy gold, right? How do you know? First, because it's a regulated product on our side. So, and because it links to the banking system, we need to make sure. So what we did, we partnered with a Swiss company where from your phone, we have face recognition technology, and you can enter the details of your passport or ID, and it's connected to 180 databases of IDs and passport that can verify. By that moment, we know that your KYC AML approved. And that's where banks are now starting interested to talk to us, because it takes them 3 weeks to do a KYC AML. But we put in place a technology that takes away the bureaucracy. Now, the third point that is also essential to understand is when you look at where the industry is going today, right? So, you have Bitcoin that is gaining a lot of value. You have also, other crypto assets, and you have physical assets. Now, the main challenge of physical assets, right? You talk about your gold mines. Now, if you want your mines are in Africa? Okay, so if you want people to go and fund your mine, you're going to be talking to the same small club of investors and lenders that have very specific criteria. Now, today with blockchain, and that's what we're doing ultimately, is that to acquire mine, we democratize access to funding by using decentralized finance. What does it mean? It means you have $100, you have $1,500 on your phone. Those are all the data tracked, validated by an audit firm about that opportunity. Now you have 5 billion phones on the planet. Let's say 1% are interested in investing in that mine. 1% put $100. So 5 billion, 505 million. So you have basically $5 billion, right? And that's where technology is going. Is that when you decentralize funding, when you use technology for the validity and accuracy of your product, then the smallholders are protected because you have KYC AML, but you have the technology that brings their funds to your project. And that's where the world is going tomorrow. Is that and at that point where it becomes very interesting is that you want to build a bigger refinery. Okay, so you decentralize, and that's why you securitize the assets. You can securitize oil, you can securitize gold, platinum, etc. Now that you've made it a security, which is a financial product that is approved and regulated, then you've covered the end user or the investor, whether it's a big one or a small one, and suddenly you enlarge the pool and the pot of funding that you can get. And that's where the world is going, and that's why it's really going to change drastically over the next 5 to 10 years. The way we consume, the way we invest, because you can also using blockchain to track every penny spent with the company at 10,000 kilometers away. And how do you do that? All spending are traceable through the blockchain. Now you see real-time performance of the business, and you don't have to wait for quarterly report or yearly report to invest. That's the game changer.
Okay, now if we talk about investing in gold and the physical gold on the ground, in terms of the company security, like there might be some people who would, come and take the gold or steal or whatever. In terms of the environment there to do the mining there, yeah, I would like you to emphasize on this one. Give us some.
Look, there's one rule in business, right? When you eat alone, you don't eat for long. That's one thing I've learned.
I like it.
Right?
Yes.
So what we do, we have a whole social impact mechanism so that we can empower the communities in the mining areas where we work. And how do we do that? For every transaction fee that is done when you sell and buy digital gold or invest in our digital asset, which is securitized shares of the company, 5% of the transaction fee goes in a social impact fund to empower local communities. Why? Because if they're happy, we're happy. They'll be the first ones to defend that land and to make sure that business flows. But if I eat alone, they'll come at me, right? There's a reason why there's a hat in Islam.
Is this done within a government supervision scheme or just directly from the company?
We do it directly. And the reason is simple. You need also to understand that not all governments have unlimited funds, right? So, and that's why our company is called Ubuntu, by the way. Ubuntu means humanity, right? So point is, let's help where we can and where we work. And if everybody does that, then you have a greater impact, right? So, and if you think of the 10, 11 countries where we're working on. Now, not only we use those transaction fees, and we still get the gold at a discount, right? But we will use those transaction fees to build schools, dispensaries, and to train those workers to come and work at the mine and have higher skills to work. But suddenly you have a community, and guess what? They'll be the first one to buy their own digital gold because they'll see that it gives them access to the global market, right? And that's where it's
You're right.
It's critical.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think one of our main opportunities in gold market for UAE and GCC countries. First of all, let me give you some numbers. 10 years or 15 years ago, precious metals, especially golds, constitute almost 50% of UAE external trade. Nowadays, I think it is less than 30%. Most of this trade is in billions or semi-manufactured gold. I think there is opportunity now for the UAE to invest heavily in manufacturing gold for industrial uses. You know, gold is used in very high-tech industries, so many types of, from mobile to medical equipment. I think there's a big opportunity in the market here for UAE to specialize special zones for manufacturing high value added golden products for industrial uses.
Sure. Yeah. These all valuable points are here. Like, this is what we need to understand to create a joint venture company between the UAE, GCC, this region, and the African region. Yes, please.
I have it's a very good point, the question of the joint venture. I'll tell you why. Because that's really what is missing today on the African continent and in other emerging markets, so the same for Latin America, is concerted, structured investment to really develop the gold mining sector with credible partners that are willing to basically go with a local partner or an expert partner in those markets, where you combine expertise in the industry, local knowledge, local network, and supply chain. Because at the end of the day, once you create the right ecosystem with the right partners, then your economies of scale become much more interesting. So I'll take you up on that idea about that JV model. And I'm happy also to involve, if need be, some African governments with whom we work, or some African investment partners or international partners, to see how we can do that. We receive every week at least 5 offers for gold concessions, small gold mines, etc. Now, they're not all good. Some are exceptional, but to do that, you need to have the right investment vehicle that you can potentially list under AIM, actually. And that's also where the tokens investment come in. So you have a JV, and then population of the UAE can invest in this JV by buying the tokens of that company as securitized shares.
Yes.
Or convertible notes.
Especially if the JVs are done within the auspices of government.
Exactly.
The GCC government that are reputable, of trusted, and abiding with international laws.
Excellent. So it looks like we have a conversation after the panel.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let us also welcome Mr. Kamara. He's with us here. He's next to you. Mr. Kamara, Mohammed Kamara. He is the manager and the economic operator group. Yeah, hi. You can hear us?
Oui, bonjour.
Yeah.
He speaks French. I can translate if need be.
He speaks French.
Vous parlez anglais? Monsieur Kamara?
Bonjour.
Est-ce que vous parlez anglais?
Yeah, we
The line is not.
I believe the signal is bad there, and we cannot hear you, Mr. Kamara. I hope you can reconnect, and let's see if we can talk to you. Meanwhile, I will move to Mr. Bala. What are the safety measures to be taken when a new business class or investor enter the gold industry, either in India or maybe other countries that you're dealing with?
So the most speakers is the trust factor. When there is a government operator which is actually regulating the industry, and then all the rights investors are enforceable. So effectively, when I said that the bullion industry is being treated now as a financial product, now the IFSC authority which is getting created will be actually be able to enforce all the contracts. Today, the way how any product, any asset class is traded in stock exchanges and commodity exchanges in the world, on a similar basis when the bullion is traded, and every part of the value chain, whether it is the buyer, the seller, the guy who gives delivery, the guy who takes delivery, every part of the system needs to have to get accredited, that the quality standards are maintained, and the counterparty a failure. Exactly what the regulator needs to ensure. And that kind of an apparatus is very critical for a success of any product to be actually traded. And that is something which is actually the fundamental thing which is required. And obviously, the education side of it is going to help, because it will help in actually the global outreach. What one can do physically, for example, earlier traditionally, the exchanges used to be open outcry platform where people used to meet personally. Now it's all digitally done. It's done in a very secure way. One could sit in any part of the world and can trade with any other user in any part of the world, as long as it is in a good jurisdiction which is enforceable, and there is credible regulator who is probably recognized by the IOSCO, that is the International Organization of Security Commissions, or it is something which the jurisdiction is totally compatible from a FATF anti-money laundering provisions, then obviously people will be actually happy to participate in that kind of a market, because it gives everybody a kind of a good trust factor, and also a guaranteed kind of a comfort that whatever they are getting into in terms of the transaction is something which will be honored by everyone.
Okay, great. Okay, maybe it will be a last question for you, Mr. Bala. Where does the UAE stand from your perspective, for these kind of businesses?
So UAE has always been a very, very important and vital partner to India and the IFSC. In fact, we already have established a kind of a partnership with the Dubai Gold and Commodity Exchange. In fact, we do license some of their gold prices for our gold futures contract. And today there is a very large kind of a non-resident Indian base which is also set up in UAE. And I think most of the gold which is today coming into India is actually routed through UAE. So effectively, there could be a strong partnership, and UAE being very close to the IFSC, there could be a lot of participation from UAE coming into the IFSC, both from non-resident Indians as well as from UAE locals and from the GCC nations. GCC nationals all. We are very excited. We think that the Middle East region, the entire Gulf region, the MENA region can actually participate with the IFSC. We can actually collaborate and work together and can create a kind of a regional price hub for the gold with our technology standard and with whatever regulatory authorities.
Right. Okay. Mr. Mamado, where does the UAE stand for your type of businesses? Where do you see the UAE stand here?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think the UAE has some key strategic advantage, right? When it comes to gold, there is a robust ecosystem, right, that involves refineries, vaulting, market. That's a major plus. It's an investor-friendly area, and of course, tax-friendly too for investors. Beyond that, there is the nice thing when you come here is that you don't have to travel around the world to meet the world, right? It remains a very good hub from a cosmopolitan point of view with diverse skills and high-level skills that is critical if you want to really deliver a good business, and with very advantageous environment, like the free zone, and also the rule of law rules, which is key as an environment. The last point is it's a forward-thinking nation that has embraced technology in a very audacious way. And when you're in the blockchain technology, and what we do, we combine blockchain, AI, you need to be in a place that give enough room for those kind of industry to flourish. This is the reason, just for the small story, right? So I came here, and Mr. Mohammed Al-Ali will confirm my story. I came here in March this year, to meet some partners and investors, and then the borders closed. All airports around the world shut down. So I found myself basically stranded in the UAE for 5 months until the borders reopened. So I came for 3 days. I stayed for 5 months, and I came back 2 months later to basically move my business and relocate our global headquarters here. So I don't think I can tell a better story than my own personal story.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just before you point out something, I just same question. Where does the UAE stand for your own business, Mr. Juma? No, where do you see where does the UAE stand for your type of business, mining? How do you see the UAE as a place to establish your company here and joint venture with investors or business partners, and then
now
do the
what
business?
I see, like as I told you, because of the bank system, is the best way to open company here, and like to open bank account and do the transaction in Dubai directly.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr.
I think one of the main lessons that COVID-19 has learned us that international companies now looking for the regional storage for their products in food, in machinery, even in gold. I think there's a big opportunity for UAE to be a storage hub for the gold, not for brilliant finished products, industrial products. I think there's a big opportunity for to attract international companies to establish their regional, even international storage places, clever, high-tech storage for billions of gold or gold products of all kinds.
Thank you so much. I think we have reached to the end of our session, and we'd like to thank the gentlemen, everybody here, and whoever joined us, Mr. Bala and Mr. Kamara. And if there is any question, I think you feel free to meet the gentlemen down there and discuss if you found out something that's interesting for you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic session there. Just before you leave the stage, we just have a quick memento and token of appreciation for each of you. So if you just like to quickly remain on the stage, Mr. Sajid will hand those out. Do we have our photographer ready? Yes. A fantastic session there. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much to Mr. Adnan bin Abdullah, Chairman of Etfs International Group, for moderating for us as well. Thank you. And please do be reminded that we have our gala dinner this evening in Sober Heartland. If you need transportation, please do go just to the back of the room, and we will organise some transport for you as well. That's this evening after the event at around 7 o'clock. And also, if you do have any further questions for any of our speakers, they will be around to answer those for you. Let's hear it one more time for our panel there. Thank you so much. Well done. A great discussion and a brilliant topic as well. Grabbing golden opportunities for new entrants. Please do speak to any of our speakers separately if you do have any further questions, of course, as well. Now, just while we set this up, because of course we do have some virtual panelists, we might need a couple of minutes because our timing's all over the place, sadly, this afternoon. However, I might as well introduce our panelists already for this next session. Now, our next panel is on newfound frontiers and partners New UAE-Israel Business Opportunities, Exploring Both Sides of a Virgin Market. Please do welcome your moderator back on stage. It's Mr. Isaac John, the editorial director for the Khaleej Times. Mr. Isaac John, welcome back. Our first speaker for this session is Mr. Dorian Barak, fund manager and corporate advisor and co-founder of the UAE-Israel Business Council. Mr. Dorian Barak. Our next speaker is a virtual one, so I think I'm just going to give them a couple of moments for that. Our next physical speaker, however, is Dr. Raphael Nagel, who is the founder and chairman of the board of the Abrahamic Business Circle. A very warm welcome to Dr. Raphael Nagel. Our next speaker, please do take your seats if I've called your name. Thank you so much. A very warm welcome. Yes, please do take any seat. Our next speaker is Mr. Mohammed Al-Ali, CEO of Alico Investments UAE. A very warm welcome to Mr. Mohammed Al-Ali. And our final physical speaker is Mr. Bruce Gerfain, who is a serial entrepreneur and acting CEO of Connect UAE and Israel Business. Mr. Bruce Gerfain. Now, I'm just going to wait for the go-ahead to introduce our virtual panelists. Can I introduce our virtual panelists yet? If not, I'm going to hand over the reins to Mr. Isaac John. Over to you.
How are you? Good evening. Once again, welcome to this panel discussion. And it is one of the most topical subjects which we are going to discuss today. It's the latest development in very historic development. Just after a few months after that, we are discussing about this UAE-Israeli peace accord and the opportunities that emerge after that, and how both countries are going to benefit out of it. For UAE and Israel, it is a landmark accord, peace accord, the Abraham peace accord. And soon after the accord, there are a lot of exciting two-way investment opportunities are emerging, and a lot of backdoor, which is not apparent now. There's a lot of accords are happening. Lot of investment funds are also being set up. And one of the examples is Abrahamic Business Circle. The founder is sitting here. Now there is also UAE, Israeli Business Council is also there. Then UAE government, US government and Israeli government both got together to set up a $3 billion fund for promoting two-way investments and to build to foster relationship between the two startup ecosystems of two countries. And as you all know, UAE and Israel share a lot of common traits. One is the population is almost the same. UAE has 9.5 million population, of which coming from more than 200 nationalities, or comprising 200 more nationalities. But Israel has over 9.2 million population, and the GDP, the size of the economy is almost the same. UAE has a GDP of $414 billion, and Israel is close by. It is $395 billion, and UAE is the world's 28th largest economy, and UAE is also a gold center, a diamond center. Israel is also the same, a diamond center. Israel is accounting for 26% of the global diamond exports, whereas UAE is accounting for more than 8.8% of the global diamond trade, which is the total trade is $116 billion. I'm just saying this off my memory because I'm a business editor, so all these figures are very familiar to me. Anyway, it is exciting time for us. and this historic landmark peace accord is paving way for a new era of cooperation, new era of prosperity for both nations, especially for the Arab and Israeli relationship. And let me ask my first question to Doris, who is sitting next to me. What are the new opportunities which are emerging out of it? Because we all know that Israel got such a world's second largest startup ecosystem, and how UAE is going to gain out of that?
It's a good question. I think first of all, the benefits for both countries are very significant. On the Israeli side, for the first time, Israelis have access to one of the world's great business hubs. I mean, the UAE is an unparalleled business center, very, very easy place to do business. Even industries like gold, which are very prominent here, have been more or less closed to Israelis coming here as Israelis, although certainly many have been coming here under foreign passports for many years. So I think the access to the UAE is a very, very promising opportunity for Israelis. Israeli companies will be quick to set up headquarters here, to target South Asia, the greater Middle East, Africa, etc. On the other hand, I think the Emirates has a lot to gain. So Israelis gain from that, but the Emiratis do as well, because businesses will be developing here. On the other hand, the Israelis tend to have a lot of strength in key areas that are very important to this region. Desert agriculture, low water agriculture, technology generally, the biotech sector, what we call life sciences in Israel, obviously cyber and IT security, communications technology, and other areas where Israelis are traditionally very, very strong. I think you'll see many Israeli companies with those capabilities coming here, offering their services to the Emirates. Very often, what Israelis distinguish themselves for doing or having is technologies that are less expensive, quick out of the box, and are able to operate in dynamic environments and innovate very quickly. That's a skill set and a capability set that the Israelis will be, I think, very quick to deploy here, and the Emiratis will gain very much from it.
Thank you, Dorian. And now I will go to Muhammad Ali. There, he is very young, one of the youngest guys here in this panel, and he is also a UAE national, and he is also a little, while talking, he sounded very excited about the new dawn which is happening. And let me ask, what do you think, as the young generation of Emiratis, how do you see this historic accord between UAE and Israel, and what are the opportunities emerging for UAE? What are the opportunities you see for UAE?
Hi everybody. To strengthen the UAE position as a leading global investment destination and as a part of international top business jurisdiction, it is one part of UAE strategy, and also His Highness Sheikh Mohammed to continue with the achievement which have done recently in the peace, security, and safety, and also fully normalization of the concept of peace here in UAE, and which is lead to recognizing a new era of increasing the economic growth, the economic, the culture relation, and also the peace cooperation between two countries. As you know, we have, as you mentioned also, we have common success factor between two nations. Almost the GDP is same, and like UAE consider one of the most open and dynamic economic in the world, with the GDP 400, as you mentioned, business friendly hub with the international connectivity. We do have the world class infrastructure and human capital, world class legal and banking system. So there is a lot of things that make easy for the people to live here. No doubt with the 200 nationality working and living here in UAE, we have a lot of common things which we have to share, knowledge, culture, and also part of the UAE program in private and public sector to come up with a program to boost this area and go further in many areas. So there is a lot of opportunities in a lot of sectors beside the gold and diamond. as a fixed asset. We do have an agriculture, food security. We do have an energy, water, education, tourism. So a lot of promising opportunities here for people to live or visit UAE, and also vice versa. Thank you.
Thank you, Muhammad Ali. That was a good thing. And now I will turn towards Dr. Raphael Nagel, who is among the first to seize this opportunity to set up Abrahamic Business Circle. He was a hands-on guy, so he knows a lot about Israel as well as UAE, and he founded this club called Abrahamic Business Circle, and he hosted a big seminar, and I attended that, so it was an insightful thing, Doctor. It was an insightful thing, and one of the former ministers from Israel attended that, and it was also a very enlightening, informative session for me, because I got to learn a lot about Israel and its potential and how the synergy is going to work wonders for both Israel and the Arab world. And let me ask you, Doctor, so you were also planning to set up some funds or something for promoting joint ventures and cooperations between the two startup ecosystems?
Part of this new peace situation, what we have between Israel and the UAE, of course, is to promote economic diplomacy. Our main idea as the Abrahamic Business Circle is to come to a point where we really can make deals happening, where we can see big transactions going. At the moment, we are trying to close several deals, for example, in the acquisition of hotels here with Israeli capital in the UAE. On the other side, we are trying to import goods from Israel to the UAE. And also the idea in the long term, of course, is setting up Israeli companies here in the UAE to create jobs and to create prosperity for the whole society. Our idea on the medium term is to set up with other entities an investment fund where we want to focus mainly on Israeli technology. As my dear friend already told before, Israel's main export product is technology. We have an outstanding technology products that are totally out of the box. And of course, there's a big need. We are talking about agriculture, water technology, a lot of things what for sure are needed for provide the food security what we need in this country.
Oh, that was a very short but very informative thing. And I will get back to you again. And now we have Mr. Gadi Gertel, CEO of Israeli Jewelers Association. He's online. He's on the screen. And welcome to this session. And
hello.
Yeah, hi. How are you? You can hear us, huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah, hear you very well. Thank you.
So you would be very a source of very good information, and you know that UAE is one of the world's thriving jewelry markets and gold markets. UAE accounts for almost UAE's gold exports or jewelry exports gold exports itself is around 5.5% of the global total gold trade. Total global gold trade is around $305 billion, and UAE exports is that. So what my first question to you is that UAE, apart from jewelry UAE is exporting, or you can rather say re-exporting gold around 15.5 billion. So how can you utilize this cooperation, this new way of synergy in importing from UAE for industrial purposes, gold for industrial purposes?
Okay, of course, because it's all new for us. And first of all, I would like to thank you very much for your hospitality here, and to tell you that we are very delighted to be here in this historic moment. And we really want to go forward with you. About your question, of course, we want and we need to learn more about the Emirates' supply and the local market. Our local market is not big. The annual turnover of a jewelry business here is $500 million just in Israel. But of course, there are many global trade companies located in Israel that are interested in new import sources. The blessed peace agreements with the UAE opening our market for new opportunities. And of course, we hope that the governments will achieve good bilateral trade agreements that can affect our business connections dramatically. As we deal with the US, for example, the free custom and VAT condition, the present trade tax condition for solid or refined gold are 0% customs from abroad into Israel, but 12% customs for jewelry. So, of course, we have already contacted our Trade Foreign Affairs Office, and we asked to promote the better conditions because it's a key point for success. The Israelis love to buy. I want you to know that, especially jewelry and the gadgets. And of course, the consumption rate here is higher than the average developed countries. The gross domestic product in Israel is around $44,000 per capita. So we are located in the 19th place in the world. So it is an interesting market, and we're looking forward to start our relationship.
Thank you. And as you just mentioned, the per capita GDP, UAE is also close by. We are $43,000. And you mentioned about your jewelry trade. I'm very happy to receive that information. But UAE's jewelry trade is much more vast and much more on a level, higher level. That is, UAE's jewelry exports itself is around 11.5 billion, and we import around 12.5 billion worth of jewelry. So that is a huge thing. So you can get benefit out of Dubai's or UAE's jewelry trade. But at the same time, the question I was asking was that UAE is also home to 11 gold refineries. Of that, the majority is located in Dubai. And here, from here, so the UAE is exporting a lot of bullion, lot of gold thing. So where in industrial purpose, Israel can also utilize that, those things, So that is what, the question I asked. But as you said, now lot of other treaties have to be signed to make the relationship more, to consolidate the relationship and to smoothen the way for the bilateral exchange of trade and all that. So that is going to happen. And anyway, glad to hear from you. And now I again turn to Dorian with my next question. See, when I attended this Abrahamic Business Circle, one of the former ministers was there. He was very informative. He was saying that, for the thing he was saying that, both the UAE and Israel share some certain common other traits also, Both have got that innovation culture, entrepreneurship culture, and a startup culture. As you know, Israel got the second largest number of startups in the world. And UAE is also following that example, UAE is encouraging the startup culture here, the ecosystem here. So my question is this. There is also another thing, how both countries can benefit. Because Israel is very advanced in technology, high-tech technology, and its ICT, information communication technology is so advanced that, UAE is also the same thing. So Israel can use UAE's cities as a test bed for their technologies, but at the same time, Israel can use UAE as a springboard to reach out to the rest of the Arab world. So what do you see? What is your remarks on this?
First of all, that's a very insightful point. I agree with you completely. Look, Israel is an unparalleled startup ecosystem. The amount of innovation that happens on a per capita basis and in absolute terms, as Rafi knows very, very well, is pretty remarkable. But for scaling up, because Israel is not as open an economy and is not as much of a business center as the UAE. The UAE presents an incredible opportunity for a synergy between the two countries, for cooperation. Certainly there's a startup ecosystem here. It's less developed. Certainly there's innovation here. It's a little bit behind Israel, but the UAE is far advanced when it comes to being a springboard for the region, precisely as you said, whether it's the greater Middle East, South Asia, with the availability of incredible human capital from across the region, the Arab world, East Africa, and even East Asia. So I think there's going to be kind of a virtuous relationship where each party complements the other. Israel bringing innovation, the UAE bringing scale-up opportunities. There's something, just as there's, and I think every foreigner who comes here, or every, I don't want to call it foreigner, what do they call them? They call them, every international company that comes here discovers very quickly that this is a very easy, comfortable, warm, and open place to do business. When you come to Israel, there's something in the air as well around innovation, around change, around testing the boundaries, around trying to do things differently, exploring different business models. But Israel's a small market. And we need partners that offer us the gateway to the rest of the region and the rest of the world. And I think that's going to be the basis of cooperation. And in fact, Rafi's Abrahamic Business Circle, which is focusing precisely on this area, I think is going to see its greatest success in helping Israeli companies commercialize and expand by using the UAE as a hub. I'm sure there's more you want to talk about.
Absolutely. First of all, many thanks. Yes, it's true. We are focalizing to see the UAE at what it is, as to see it as the amazing trading platform to the world. We have the most amazing logistics systems in this country with our airlines, with our big company like DP World. And very soon when you come here, I'm coming to the UAE since 2001. And I can tell you, when I speak with other people, I feel like Emirati already. It gets very easy. When you come here, you feel very comfortable. It's very easy to come home here. And of course, you have a lot of advantages for Israeli companies. One of the main things that we have nearly no trading limits with nobody. One of the big advantages what Israeli companies should take in consideration also from my point of view, we have a very easy trading with a big market where we cannot trade from Israel, what is called Pakistan. It's an amazing market where we have to take the advantage to. And in terms of innovation, yes, no doubt on it. Israel is an amazing technology hub, no doubt. And we are the amazing trading hub, but we also have had the first flight to the Mars from the UAE. And I think if we are able to find a joint venture program between these both innovative, young, dynamic nations, I'm very sure there will be amazing things happening. And the world will be known for something totally different than at the moment the Middle East. Not only for conflicts and for negative news, I'm very convinced that very soon the whole area will be totally different. Yesterday, you all know, our Prime Minister from Israel was in Saudi together with other few people, and it looks like that even Saudi is joining very soon. And of course, the whole situation will change, and we are all expecting to have very soon here the global market of the Middle East that can provide a lot of opportunities. From our point of view, we have a market of 400 million Arabic citizens here in the whole area that can provide a huge market for Israel and, of course, for the UAE, having all the logistics and trading platforms. Because without any doubt, the UAE has 52 free zones. Most of the countries in the world, they have roughly one free zone. We have 52. Setting up a company is a question of a few hours, something really amazing. And on top, we have an unbelievable tax system, what is unbeatable. You don't pay tax here for companies. You only pay VAT, what is a big issue. But even if you would pay tax, they will be much lower than in other places. So I think it's really the place to be for any Israeli company. They should have here minimum a delegation or a daughter company.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question, Mohammed? Yes. Yeah. See, like people like you, so you are a new generation of Emiratis. I know your age also. From the phrase, I can say your age. You want me to say that? Yes. You are 40 plus, 42, 41. Am I correct?
Yes.
That is my thing, Anyway, so as you know that following UAE's example, a lot of other Arab countries, for instance, Sudan joins the pact. And Saudi Arabia is expected to join. That is what I understood soon after the US elections. Now it is, so we can expect that But what do you think? What is the change which is going to happen? It's a little political question, but it is an innocent question. What is going to happen around the Arab world? Because UAE has blazed the trail. UAE has shown the way. Now it is going to happen. Now Saudi Arabia and other countries will come. So what will be the change you are foreseeing? The dramatic changes which is going to happen soon after this alliance, because Israel, as both the leaders of the both countries have said, is a very strategic cooperation in terms of cyber security, in defense, in agriculture, which is most paramount for this region, and in the healthcare sector, in education, everywhere. Their technology is unbeatable. So what do you see is what is going to be the paradigm shift you are foreseeing for the whole region, the GCC or the Arab region?
Yes, UAE and specifically Dubai will be the showcase as a replication of knowledge which is coming from Israel to the region, to the other world. So where is the best place than UAE to show to the world our success, and also sharing knowledge and taking care of a lot of initiative, incubator, startup, and inject them in UAE. In UAE, we have a lot of success stories like DIFC with the top Fortune international company, insurance companies. When you're coming to Jabal Ali, as an early stage, they accommodate and host over the 500 Fortune companies. And where is the best logistic in the Arab region? It is UAE. So from UAE to the east, it will be the best bridge between east and west, from Dubai to Asia and to Arab world.
Thank you. And may I ask you, Dorin, another question? See, there are when this treaty was signed and when the excitement was building up, people were speculating what would be the total outcome of all these things going to be. And there are various speculations that UAE-Israel trade, bilateral trade would touch $4 billion. That is one, somebody very authentically said that. And the two-way investment is going to touch $10 billion within 2 years. So what is your take on that? How do you react to that? Is it an overestimation, or is going to happen like that, or it is underestimation?
That's a good question, and it's a difficult question because no one really knows. I'll tell you, there are about 250 Israeli companies operating here already today. I've been operating here for the past decade, and when we established the Business Council, I established the council in June, even before the peace agreement was signed. It was basically to bring together a community of people who happened to be living in Israel with Emiratis who were doing business together very, very fruitfully for many, many years. I think the bilateral trade, it depends how you define the bilateral trade. There's going to be an enormous transit trade via the UAE. Mm-hmm. And there are winners and losers. Not everything is additive. I think you'll see a lot of Israeli businesses that have traditionally been focused on Singapore, Hong Kong, and other offshore centers shifting to Dubai in particular. The UAE generally, but Dubai especially, because it really is the most comfortable place to do business of its kind. It really is an unparalleled business hub. At the same time, you're going to see Israelis who are using Dubai not just to target East Asia, the greater Middle East, South Asia, Africa. You're going to see a lot of Israelis who are actually investing here. Solar, water, medical. This is an industrial hub. It is becoming an industrial hub. It's becoming an incoming destination for medical tourism. It is becoming increasingly self-sufficient with respect to food. Israel has technologies and solutions for this, and Israel tends to be very, very good at these things. We have a small country. We don't have a lot of arable land, so we've come up with solutions that require little land, little water, and can function, solutions that can operate also at great heat. This is a capability set that I think will be welcome here. So I see two parts to this, to your question. The first is, what is going to be the direct trade between the UAE and Israel? Probably $1 to $2 billion in the coming years is a reasonable number, but I think the transit trade through the UAE could reach $5 billion very, very quickly as Israeli companies that are either operating from Israel vis-a-vis the East or Israeli companies that are operating already in other destinations, other business centers, Hong Kong, Singapore, shift their business to the UAE because of the benefits of doing business here.
So that is a great news. And as you were saying, for UAE, it is of paramount importance that Israeli technology, especially in farming. I was told by Ayub Kara that Israel can, for the desert conditions, it doesn't need real irrigation in the conventional sense.
I just yesterday, I was in Israel yesterday, and we received these carrots. And for the first time, I got carrots. I ordered organic carrots. They had no residue of anything on them.
No. What I'm talking about the water technology from the atmosphere.
You're talking about atmosphere. Yes.
Ayub Kara was saying that. And another thing is the precision farming. That is, water wastage will be reduced by substantially reduced. Only for that point, it will go that water. So that water wastage would not drip. It is called a precision farming. Your Prime Minister was speaking one day, I was hearing that, his speech, that technology they have developed. So not a drop of water is wasted. So that technology, so these are the exciting things which UAE can benefit out of that. Anyway, so you want to say something?
At the moment, Israel has a GDP of around about 420 million. And the UAE has a GDP of 395?
No.
To give you an idea about
other way. UAE has a GDP of 414 billion and Israel 395.
Okay. Then the other way. But out of this figure, you can see very easily here that the trade volume will be huge, because I imagine that a lot of Israeli companies will use the logistic facilities, the business facilities, what they have here in these countries. So I really believe that the figure can be really going to this 5 billion on a medium term without any problem. In terms of the water technology, the technology, you take the humidity out of the water, out of the air, and you convert it into water. It's amazing technology, but there will be a lot more to come. I'm very convinced about it.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
People love that technology where you take the humidity and you convert it to water. But it's more important to remember that recycling of water, reuse of water, waste management is far more important. Israel recycles roughly 80% of its water, which is an incredible number. The second after Israel is about 30% for Spain. So you could just see Israel really is the leader in this space. And as you know, Israelis grow things in infertile soil, without soil, with small amounts of water, precisely the technologies that are needed here. But I also think that it'll be much easier for Israeli companies to scale in the UAE than they've ever been able to do in Israel.
Companies building here, and also the culture diversity, exchange of knowledge. We are a welcome country. We host over 200 nationalities. So we adapt and host and invest in such technologies.
I still believe that Mr. Gadi Gattel is still with us, or he's online, still there, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah, he's there. So are you ready to take another question?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, and see, you are talking about the jewelry business. You are the president of Jewelry Association, and you also maybe directly connected with the diamond business of Israel, because Israel is one of the world's largest diamond cutting centers in the world, and UAE also imports a lot of diamonds. Every year UAE imports more than $10 billion worth of diamonds and export also diamonds. How these two countries can mutually benefit out of this accord? And you were mentioning about also in your answer that there are more agreements have to be in place. Only then there should be, everybody should be assured that everything will be smooth, because there are a lot of side treaties. For example, for tax, double taxation avoidance treaty, there are a lot of such treaties need to be in place before a full-fledged relationship could take place. So what is your what are your comments on this?
Okay, first of all, of course, with the Diamond Bourse, we work together and we march together in the international markets. the Israeli gold market needs to be developed much more than it is today. That's why we are seeking for new sources, and one of the big opportunities that I can see here, as my colleagues mentioned before, is the new sources that we can and will find in the UAE field. Of course, we can use the path to east much easier and shorter than we used to have. And of course, we can use, as once again my colleagues mentioned before, our technologies even in jewelry to teach and to learn from your market, of course, new ways to produce and to export.
Thank you. I think we are running short of time. And how many more minutes? I have only 1 minute. Anyway, thank you very much for participating in this very delightful, very exciting, very informative session. And because all of you are experts in this field, so that is why it has been so exciting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to your attendance.
Another fantastic session there. Please do stay on the stage. We'd just like to quickly give you a little memento and a token of appreciation. I think we have our photographer ready. And do we have our certificates ready is the question. I hope so. A fantastic session there, though. Really interesting. And a very exciting future ahead, indeed, so it seems.
Please.
Do we have Mr. Sajid or Mr. Anoop here to hand these over? If not, we will do it, no problem. Oh, yes. If you let's come back on the stage, we have a.
Aisha.
Yes, and please do get in the photograph as well.
I'll take it for you. So I have the rare honor of distributing the certificates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, you too. Good. Very good.
Copies of the pictures.
You go on Facebook.
You want to give?
We upload them quickly.
And this is mine is there. Somebody can use it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much. Very informative session. If you do have any questions for any of our speakers, please do make sure you try and grab them throughout the day because they will be around. And we move on now to our next panel discussion. We are running a little bit late, sadly, so I'll get a move on. But our next panel looks at funding opportunities in gold business and investment for high net worth individuals and individual investors. So please give a very warm welcome to your moderator for this session, Ms. Ari Maraji, Director of AM Connect International, Australia. Very warm welcome to Ari. Right, our first speaker is Ms. Ensalu Enzoa, Manager at Stamico, Tanzania. Our next speaker is Ms. Mabel Hoyos Guiaro, Director of the Hebony Group, Spain. Our next speaker is a virtual speaker. His Excellency is Zach Wanume Kibedi, the ambassador of Uganda to the United Arab Emirates. Let's see if we have our virtual speaker. They might be joining us a little bit later. Our next speaker is Mr. Maurice Janssen, the CEO of Global Diamond Investment Switzerland. Welcome to Maurice Janssen. Our next virtual speaker is Dr. Mithil Kokshi, Managing Partner at Kokshi & Kokshi, CA, India. And our final speaker for this session is Mr. Jay George, Founder and CEO of the Lion Eagle Family Office, USA. And over to you, Ari, moderator.
Good afternoon. Do we have to wait for the virtual? We carry on? Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Maurice.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure
Good
to
afternoon.
have you over. I would like to start with the question, actually. I would like to start with ladies, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
while we're waiting. Oh, okay. Sorry. We're waiting for other participants to join us. Ms. Mabel, please just give us a brief idea about your company first. Introduction of your company. I know we are experts in Latin America and Spanish-speaking countries. Please carry on.
Refinery. Oh, thank you. We have a refinery in Spain.
Does it work? Yeah.
We have, thank you, Adi. We have running refinery in Spain, and we have a gold company in Emirates, in Abu Dhabi, and we work in trade with all the Latin America countries.
Fantastic. Mr. Janssen, appreciate if you just give us a brief idea about your company as well.
Yes, first of all, great pleasure to be here. Thank you for everyone. The company that we have, I'm the CEO of a company in Switzerland, in Geneva, where we are advising family offices on the investment side for clients who want to invest into gold, watches, diamonds, and jewelry as an alternative. And as such, are building an amazing wealth management platform that we would like to also develop further in this context.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. As we all know, gold has a special place when it comes to the asset, and it has a benefit that has been there for ages. It's the history of it. I would like to know, what are the major opportunities in opening the gold market to satisfy nascent domestic private investor demand, in your opinion?
So in general, I think gold is a very stable asset class, very well known. Most of the clients investing are vested into the gold. And as such, I think it's something that is already very well known. In Switzerland, the banks, whether it's UBS, Credit Suisse, are quite well developed. You can technically actually invest into these products and also buy them through the banks. So this might be something that could be something that for the banks here can be interesting to look at. Generally, it's very well accepted in Switzerland to invest into gold as a product category.
Thank you. Ms. Mabel, I would like to ask you a question specifically with regards to Latin America. Is the gold in Latin America relevant to the needs of world gold market, in your opinion?
The World Gold Council estimate 50,000 tons waiting in at the moment in Latin America to exploding. Then I think this is the potential we have.
Okay, so why do you think they don't have the strong presence in the current world gold scene at the moment?
Like I told you, we want to be the bridge between Latin America and Middle East. This is
So your company?
Yes.
Fantastic news, amazing. Amazing. I believe Dr. Abdullah has joined us. Hello, Dr. Abdullah, can you hear us?
Yes, please.
Can you hear us?
Am I audible? Yes, please.
Hi, good
I'm
afternoon.
right here.
I'm fine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, all.
Appreciate if you give us a brief idea about your company, please. Just a short introduction.
Good evening. Good evening, His Excellencies, distinguished guest speakers, participants. I have the honor to, join you today. I very much love to be with you because I remember 8 years ago, right there at the Burj Khalifa, the Amani Hotel, I had an event with the Dubai government on the World Energy Forum. Also, I want to thank the Ibmc for giving me the honor to be able to address this gathering. Now, I know that a lot has been said since the event started in the morning, so I would not like to repeat quite a lot that's been said about the emerging markets within international gold business. Now, wearing the cap of the Global South Economic Forum, and also the fact as signatory United Nations Global Compact, what I would like to say here is that if there is no enabling environment, business cannot thrive. And this takes one to the World Economic Forum event that was in January 2018, which has the theme, the fractured world. And we all agree that we're in a fractured world. So how does business thrive in a fractured world? But however, this is a part of the issues that my organization, the Global South Economic Forum, is addressing. And this gathering also relates to what I will be talking in the next few minutes. For the fact that on the Global South, there are 10 topmost countries in the world that are producers of gold. And out of these 10, 7 are from the Global South. I'm talking of China, which seems to be the first among the 10, followed by Russia, and then we have Australia, then United States, and then you have Canada, and the rest are still within the Global South, which is Peru, Ghana, South Africa, Mexico, and Brazil. My concern, which I'd like to raise here, is that we all know that of the top 10, like I mentioned, the 7 which I mentioned also, I sent a presentation, my slide, to the organizers of the event, and I hope they'll be able to share it after my speech. Now, my duty is to see how can the business of gold thrive. And not only that, even some of the speakers earlier mentioned about taking care of the communities. And we all know what is called the CSR, corporate social responsibility. So the fact is, in the Global South, we have Africa, we have Middle East, we have the South America, we have Mexico, we have the Central America. And in the process of having to look at how can we ensure that the business of gold thrive, is to look at the last 17 goals, which is under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and which is about partnership. And I'm glad that also one of the speakers mentioned about joint ventures and talked about partnership. But however, in the Global South developing countries, this is not, this is lacking in terms of partnership. And what I would like to state here, the opportunity for this gathering to start to think about how can we partner so that we can be able to, ensure that the global south, because if we find that 7 out of 10 top countries in the world, gold producers, are in the global south, but yet the global south is the most impoverished within our society, which is even 2/3 of the population of the world. And that is where my concern as a person is. Now, the countries of the global south have been described as newly industrialized, but even with that, you still find when we talk about the north-south divide, the north-south divide. And the north-south divide needs to be dealt with in terms of ensuring that we can close the gap between developing countries and the advanced countries. And to do that, because we realize that there's endemic poverty in the gold-producing states. There are significant number of countries in the global south that have an outstanding, concerns in terms of the wealth, national resources such as gold, and yet severe environmental concerns, which including social and economic problems and pressures persist, even with lack of infrastructure and social amenities are grossly inadequate in the global south.
Sorry, Mr. Divala, I'm interrupting you, Dr. Divala.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you come again, please?
Yes. I would like to ask you, what do you think about institutional investors or individual investors investing in mine and refineries in Africa? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think if you heard what I said earlier, I would not want to repeat some of the things that have been said about the guest speakers. If the environment, if there's no enabling environment, there's no investors that can do much. At the same time, if you have 7 out of 10 topmost gold-producing countries in developing countries, and yet there is high level of poverty, I think that is of great concern. And I felt that this is an environment to also discuss it, because if you're able to ensure that the people who live within where we explore, where we mine this gold, are also being taken care of, then there will be more investment. And that is what I felt that from my organization, the Global South Economic Forum, would like to contribute to ensure that after this event, we can also look at how can we, and the only way we can, which I'm coming in my proposal, my presentation, it's all about partnership. We are advocating there should be a forum for Global South gold producers in the Global South producing states to have a forum where they can interact, where they can share ideas, where they can try to develop policies that will at least be far-reaching. Because even on the United Nations, which, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of issues which, if we don't deal with all this, I was in Dubai last year with the Institute of Directors of India to talk about business excellence. And similarly is that whatever we sit there and discuss, we also have to look at the endemic poverty within our communities. And I think while the investors who are more in business and we that are civil society organizations, we need to ensure that there is this partnership between the investors, the businesses. Well, that's what you call public-private partnership. A public-private partnership is proactive in the communities.
Yes, thank you very
Definitely
much.
There will be a lot of
Mr. Jansen,
businesses for investors.
Sorry, Mr. Jansen, you have something to add, please?
Well, I just want to build on what he is referring to, because the topic has been raised from an institutional investor point of view.
Yes.
And I believe that what the ambassador is talking about is in Europe there is a program from the European Investment Bank and the European Commission that does capacity building in countries, which could be very relevant for what you're outlining, which really means it's all about creating the transparency, making sure that you understand where the gold comes from, which are the SDG goals and CSR programs you're referring to. So these programs are programs for 3 to 5 years, where they help to build capacity and on a country level, subject to having a country level strategy for the product, actually would facilitate the trade. So the key takeaway from that is that on a country level, it's important for you to have a country level strategy. And on the country level strategy, then identify gold as the key export and import product. And if you structure it properly, you will be able to attract the capital and get the investors to step in. But I think these are two separate topics. Trying to build communities, infrastructure, schools, hospitals, obviously is a key and important factor to foster and develop the country. But in order to attract the institutional investors and the funds, they obviously want to know that the product comes from a certain country, meaning where the origin comes from, and that it's done in a responsible and, I would say, sustainable manner for them to invest.
Thank you very much. So, in your opinion, is gold a clear complement to stock, bonds, and broad-based portfolios?
So technically, there are two types of investment products. There's physical gold and there is paper trading gold. Yeah. So basically, depends who you ask this question for you to be able to get the answer. If it's physical gold, which means that it's basically you buy the kilo bars and you put it in the vault, typically the bankers who are trading will try and prevent you from doing that because they would prefer to keep the funds for investment banking purposes and promoting equity and bonds and stocks, which is very classically that kind of environment. However, if you have paper traded bonds, which is also an option, which is basically something that can, or paper traded gold, then it can substitute, at least from the investment banking side. So the key is to make it strategic in your portfolio to decide, okay, I want to invest in gold and I want to allocate so much million or millions or billions to that particular category. Right. And then choose the best vehicle, whether it's physical or whether it's tradable goods. And if you do that, then technically you don't have this discussion whether a bond or an equity or things like that are a substitute. It's a decision that you make to invest into that category. Yeah. And you then come up with a portfolio management strategy that gives you a mix of the different components.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I believe Dr. Chokshi is with us. Can you hear us, Dr. Chokshi?
Yes.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Appreciate if you just give us a brief introduction about yourself and your company, please.
Yes, so we are an India-based company, and we are, more into the advisory side and the compliance perspective. Choksi and Choksi Chartered Accountants, and essentially there are a lot of compliance issues around the digital currencies versus virtual currencies. And in India, we are trying to do a research on that. There are, having said so, I would like to disclaim that, regulations across the globe are not very uniform in regard to these currencies, including the digital currency. And I think we have a lot to play in terms of trying to establish a good, forum for regulatory peace in terms of uniformity of the process going forward. And coming from India, where the virtual currencies are still not looked at upon with a lot of legalities as well as digital. I think that's something which we need to bear in mind when we are, understanding the whole eco-space within which the digital currencies are going to be functioning in times to come.
You just mentioned digital currency. I would like to add market development may require regulatory changes and the introduction of wide range of gold-backed investment products. In your opinion, how far the UAE is faring in this part?
Yeah, the initiatives that are being taken by UAE, I mean, it's always been the in a way, the gold capital of the world and the gold trading business hub for the world. And the initiatives that UAE is taking in terms of trying to build digital-backed gold, digital currency backed by gold, essentially what they're trying to build today is taking 2 steps ahead of times, and which is what reflects the vision of His Excellency. And I think we are very much proud of such initiatives and the vision that UAE has, and we are lucky as India to be partners with UAE. But having said so, the initiatives are laudable, and there will be more stability to the otherwise virtual currencies. Today, virtual currencies are in terms of cryptocurrencies, but when you have a digital currency which is backed by an underlying and which will be done as per, considering the way UAE is promoting gold, what is going to happen is there will be much more stability when it's backed by gold or US dollar. And even though, you may generate these currencies out of the blockchain, what ultimately is going to happen is that these are going, virtual currency did not have an underlying backing, whereas the digital currency will have this underlying backing now, and which is what UAE is promoting, and which, is the future. And maybe 10 years hence, we all may be talking, this was one of the most, path-breaking events of the earlier times. Probably that's what we are going to remember, and especially during COVID.
That's true. Yes, I indeed remember that event. So in your opinion, do you think gold's proven role as a store of wealth for everyone worldwide? Same as India?
Yeah. Yes, because see, today what has happened, and we've seen that in the last 8 months of the topsy-turvy markets. Whilst equity has been, phenomenal in terms of returns, there have been a V-shaped, going down of the equity markets right from February, March, collapses and then going up. What was always stabilizing, steadily growing was the gold. And therefore any currency, digital currency backing, which is backed by gold, which is moving towards digitization. So therefore everything has to be digital, and anything which is not backed becomes intangible. People don't want intangible, but people want something which is tangible, and anything backed by gold is digital backed by tangibility. And when you have digital backed by tangible gold, this is going to play an important role for the future, as it will be more and more sustainable, and it will continue to be a safe haven for times to come. And the safe haven percentage will increase with the uncertainties, increasing year by year over time in the global scenario.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jansen, would you like to add something else?
No, I think the point to just make is very, very good. I mean, technically, if you asset back the gold, and there are different ways of doing that, then it creates absolute stability in the portfolio. And what's very important is ultimately today gold has proven to be the stable factor. Technically, you can even also borrow on gold. There are these programs where if you have gold in storage, that you can actually create liquidity on it. So I believe if you have the right vehicles and you have the right approach, then I think gold is still a very safe and very good way to back your assets.
So in your opinion, I would like to know, what are the challenges that you're facing in terms of investment?
Challenges, I think clients typically who are investing into gold want absolute transparency. So that's one factor. The second factor is they want quality assurance, which means that clients tend to buy Credit Suisse, they tend to buy UBS, the products that they know. So I think one of the key things in order to develop this market and region between the countries is to have I would say, a quality mark or assessment, a hallmark or something like that, that would give a quality assurance seal to the product that you're exporting from here. I think this would be something that if you do develop on this market, that would help people to invest into this category more comfortably.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mabel, would you like to add anything else? Would you like to add anything else? Sorry.
In the same question you asked to him, I think is in like we have a high demand because of the pandemic.
Yes.
Invest in discovering new minings is a good way also to do this.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Dr. Abdullah, can you hear us?
Yes, please. I can.
Dr. Abdullah, would you like to add anything else?
Much I could say, like I said earlier, quite very, very high level discussions, in terms of our best to, because I remember when this was launched about a few months ago by the Ibmc, a lot of things said, and it's just to continue to intensify the market. But like I said, we need to look at the fact that where these things are being produced, how much can we reach more to people in those communities? And we can only do that if we come together in partnership. Also, some speakers have mentioned about technology. These are also an area where, example, India and some other countries in UAE can make contributions towards how we can, because we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So our concern as a Global South Economic Forum, is to ensure that we create the enabling environment for business to thrive. We're talking about sustainable development. We just have about 9 years more. I've traveled wide, even in India itself, going through the trains and whatever, to see the level of poverty. And believe you me, I just feel that we should always not just think we're in a comfort zone, because the more we can look after those poorer rural areas where we take the natural, the mineral resources, we need to do more and be honest, being transparent, and being sincere and committed, because the more we can better the lives of those people in those communities, the more our businesses will thrive. That's what I could say. And it's only by partnership. I have sent a proposal to the Ibmc, and I will be taking it further with them to see how we can ensure that within the Global South, because in 1955, efforts were made to bring developing countries together, but that didn't happen. You have the UN Office of Social Cooperation in Switzerland. Not much is happening. So we need to see how much we, as businessmen, as community leaders, how we can reach, far-reaching to our communities. Because we're in a fractured world. It's not said by us, but by the World Economic Forum. So I will want, as we discuss how we can better our businesses, the only ideal way is to look after the communities. And we hope that after this, we'll be able to do more by creating that partnership to better the lives of those who are far less privileged and those who live in the communities that we make, businesses from. Thank you very much, at least.
Thank you very much. These are very valid points. Thank you so much. I would like to know, Ms. Mabel, you mentioned there is a demand for gold, and you said the best way is to invest in gold mine, especially during the COVID. There has been high demand and lack of supply because of many reasons. I would like to know, how can you facilitate access of people in this region to South America, where you have the expertise?
Yes, we want to be the bridge between Latin America.
Yes.
We want to be the bridge between Latin America and Middle East. And our company, I think, can organize it and can control all the problems we can find in this way, in this business, no? But we have experience especially in Peru, in Dominican Republic, in Colombia, and I think it's a good opportunity to invest on that.
So Hebony will be the bridge between South America and investors here in this part of the world?
Yes, this is our intention, and we are sitting in Dubai from 2007, and we speak Spanish, English, and I think we are the good bridge to do this business.
That's amazing, fascinating. Thank you very much. Dr. Chokshi, I would like to ask you, how would you characterize market sentiment toward gold ETFs today?
So for the last, 8 months, the market sentiments have been very buoyant towards the, gold ETFs. But the rate of the IRR, has kind of stabilized, and given returns over the last 10 years, right? But if you compare the rate of return versus equity, again, now the equity has slowly taken, a little fewer steps more ahead of gold ETFs, as I would say. So then again, it's a question of growth versus defensive strategy, and when the world seemingly in February and March was coming to an end, the gold returns were, ETFs were doing phenomenal at that point in time. Yep. So, it's anybody's guess. As of now, I think our role should be that how we can create this as a separate basket for investors, a separate platform, separate uniform practices globally. And I think UAE can play a major role in creating a uniform practice, even under the international financial reporting standards. And being an accountant and an auditor and a tax advisor, we often find that there are inconsistent practices. And today the need of the hour is to create a uniform practice for the product, uniform compliances, uniform regulations, and create more stability for such basket in years to come. And that would be very, very pioneering. And this is where we all need to collectively apply our minds, be it southern parts of America, Africa. We need to collectively work out a uniform platform, regulations and disclosure practices which can make this a very stable form of digital currency in times to come. And as you know, the whole world is moving towards digitization, then why not this?
Thank you very much.
By the way, I'd sent across a presentation, so you would want to share it with the participants at convenience.
Sure, I will check on that bit. So as you mentioned, you would like to put sort of unity to the region in Africa, for example, or South America. Is that correct? Is that what you mentioned?
No, globally. They are just the examples. I'm not just, it could be the developed world versus the developing world, all of them together. Okay. A global. You need a global leader, and UAE can take that global leadership in creating that uniformity and unity for such a kind of a digital currency.
Okay, thank you very much. The last question, Mr. Jensen, I would like to ask you, with the current situation of COVID-19 pandemic, that we also, the stock market went through a lot of stress, but the gold was the only product standing really strong. What are your point of view in future of gold with regards to the latest happening?
Well, I think everyone in the gold business knows that gold has outperformed just about everything this year. The gold price is still increasing. I think I read a note that the expectation is that from next year it's going to go to $2,300 basically, which means that there is an expectation that it will continue to increase, which means that if you've invested in gold during the pandemic in the first few months, you've actually made probably a very decent return. Now, this is from the investment perspective. It doesn't mean that when you look at it from a mining perspective or a buying or refining perspective that you have the same upside. So I think from the miners and from the buyer side, I think it was probably still a challenging year. But if I look at what the trend was from the private banking and from the banking side, they have traded quite a lot of volumes and it was a very profitable and growable business. And the outlook remains very positive in the next few months and years to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the participants. Thank you, Ms. Mabel. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
session there. Thank you so much. If you'd like to just quickly stay on the stage, we have some certificates for you to say thank you very much for participating with us. We have those, and Mr. Sajid, if you'd like to come and do the honours, or Mr. Anoop, and also we have our photographers as well. Fantastic session there, thank you. And thank you to our virtual panellists as well, if you're still there. You've probably been cut off by now, but yeah, excellent session. Thank you so much. And of course, yes, if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate in asking our speakers. And also, maybe you can speak some more at the gala dinner at Sober Heartland a little later on. As I mentioned, if you do need transport, we can organise that for you as well. So after this, we just have a couple more panels for you. Just 2 more panels of the day. Thank you so much. Let's hear it one more time for our panelists there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Mr. Sajid as well. Thank you. Right, we just have a few more things to hand out, actually, now that we've given out some certificates. Just before we move on to our final 2 panels of the day, we'd like to call up on stage, please, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Saeed Al-Kindi, the former Minister of the UAE, because we'd like to hand you a nice little trophy for your participation today and say thank you so much for being with us. So please, let's hear it for His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Saeed Al-Kindi. Thank you very much. We heard from His Excellency earlier in the day on one of our panels. So thank you so much. It really is a great honour to have you here with us here today. Thank you so much once again to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Saeed Al-Kindi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks. Now, we'd also like to award Dr. Tariq Al-Nizami, the founder and CEO of the CEO Clubs Network Worldwide. Dr. Tariq Al-Nizami, please do come up, because we'd also like to hand you one of these delightful trophies. And Mr. Isaac John, the editorial director of the College Times, who did an amazing job moderating for us today. Mr. Isaac John, are you here? We'd also like to honour you with a lovely trophy. Yes, please do come up. Let's give him a nice round of applause as well. Thank you to Isaac John, editorial director at the College Times, for being with us as well. Great moderation skills there for us today as well. Super knowledgeable, of course, from the College Times. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, His Excellency, Mr. Dr. Mohammed Saeed Al-Kindi, if you'd just like to come up for one last photograph while you are here. And we'd also like to award Mr. Jeffrey Rhodes, the founder and managing consultant of Rhodes Precious Metals Consultancy, DMCC, as well. Please do come up on the stage to collect your trophy. And thank you so much for being with us. This is just a little token of appreciation as well. 2nd year in a row. Nice to see you back. And while we're all up on the stage, I'd like to invite Dr. Tariq Al-Nizami, the founder and CEO of the CEO Clubs Network worldwide, to collect his trophy. These wonderful gold trophies here. Thank you so much. And then our final awardee, I hope he is he's still here with us, Mr. Bhaskar Raj, Senior Business Journalist in the UAE, who also moderated brilliantly for us here today. Let's hear a huge round of applause for all our awardees there. Get your last photographs and we will move on. Brilliant. Let's hear it one more time for our awardees there. Thank you so much for your contribution for today. Very much appreciated indeed. Thank you. And just before we move on to our final two panels, we've got a small announcement to make as well. We have a business collaboration agreement to announce between Ibmc International and Alico Investments. So, Mr. Sajid Kumar, the CEO and MD of Ibmc International, is signing his agreement with Mr. Mohammed Al Ali, the CEO of Alico Investments. Please do, both of you, come up on the stage and do your thing. So, His Excellency, if you'd like to join us one more time for a couple more photographs. Thank you so much. Huge congratulations on your business agreement. That's between Alico Investments and Ibmc International. A huge congratulations once again. Well done. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to our next panel. It's not our final panel, but it's our nearly at the end. So this panel now focuses on the challenges and opportunities within the retail gold jeweler business. So please do welcome your moderator for this next session. Please welcome, we've just awarded him with a lovely trophy, Mr. Bhaskar Raj, Senior Business Journalist in the UAE. And please do welcome our panel. We have Mr. Rajesh Jain, partner at Soroya Jewelers LLC. A very warm welcome. Please do come up on the stage as soon as I call your name. We also have, speaking virtually, Mr. Io Sopitan, the founder and CEO of Metalex Commodities USA Africa. We also have Ms. Maha Al-Sibai, the founder of Maha Al-Sibai Jewelry UAE. Mr. Bhagwan Gawai, the chairman and managing director of Cytax Energy DMCC Dubai and Dassault Petroleum Services LLC, who's joining us virtually. We also have Mr. Ricardo Osorio, associate at Whitehall & Company. And our final speaker is Mr. Maha YM Hawa, who is the general manager of the Hawa Group from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mr. Bhaskar Raj, over to you. We have about 30 minutes for this session. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Good, good. It's already evening, huh? It's Sunday. Hello. Good evening, friends. So we had very, very rewarding sessions earlier. So we had actually touched upon by the experts and the industry leaders, almost all gamut of the industry. Now we are moving on to the most exciting part of it, the retail business. Perhaps the most glittering sector of the UAE's gold business is its retail segment. That's why for most customers, gold business is jewelry retail. As you know that everybody is talking about, nobody knows about the gold bar or biscuit or something, but only the jewelry. They want to be bedecked, that's all. Okay, now